Zui TV.
The old treasure map in Zui's backpack suddenly started glowing bright blue, and before he could blink twice, a swirling tornado of sparkly sand lifted him right off the ground. Round and round he spun, faster than a washing machine, until everything went whoosh and he landed with a soft thump on the most colorful sand he had ever seen.
Wow!
This wasn't ordinary sand at all. It was made of tiny crushed gemstones that sparkled like millions of disco balls under the bright sunshine. Purple palm trees swayed in the ocean breeze, their leaves making tinkling sounds like wind chimes. The ocean nearby was cotton candy pink, with waves that bubbled and fizzed like giant soda pop. Zui looked around and realized he had no idea where he was. The glowing map in his hands showed a big island shaped like a smiling face, with different colored sections that looked like puzzle pieces. A red section with tiny volcano drawings, a blue section covered in wavy lines, a green section full of tree symbols, and a golden section right in the middle with a big star. The sand beneath his feet started to move and wiggle, forming tiny arrows that pointed toward the green section. Zui decided to follow them, stepping carefully from one sparkling arrow to the next. As he walked, the arrows began to glow brighter, and soon they were shooting up into the air like colorful fireworks, creating a magical pathway through the sky. Following the floating arrows, Zui found himself in a jungle where everything was upside down and backwards. The tree roots grew up toward the sky like twisted party streamers, while the green leaves and branches grew down into the ground like underground tunnels. Hanging fruits looked like glowing lanterns, and when the wind blew through them, they played beautiful music like a giant outdoor orchestra.
That is so cute!
Strange and wonderful creatures lived in this topsy-turvy jungle. Monkeys with butterfly wings fluttered from root to root, chattering in voices that sounded like tiny bells. Parrots with rainbow fur instead of feathers rolled around on the ground like colorful tumbleweeds, leaving trails of glittery dust wherever they went.
That is unbelievable!
The map in Zui's hands began to change, showing new paths appearing and disappearing like a living puzzle. He followed a trail made of glowing mushrooms that popped up one by one, each one playing a different musical note as he stepped on it. Soon he was playing a happy tune with his footsteps, dancing and hopping from mushroom to mushroom through the magical forest. The mushroom path led him to the blue section of the island, where everything was made of water, but somehow he could walk on it. The ground was like thick, bouncy jello that rippled with every step. Fish swam through the air above his head, blowing bubbles that turned into tiny hot air balloons carrying messages written in sea foam. In this watery wonderland, Zui discovered floating islands made of coral that changed colors every few seconds. Each island had different treasures. One was covered in seashells that sang lullabies, another was home to dancing seahorses that painted pictures with their tails, and the biggest island had a lighthouse made entirely of pearls that lit up the whole area with soft, dreamy light.
Beautiful!
The magical map now showed him a bridge made of hardened rainbow that stretched from the blue section to the red section. As Zui walked across the rainbow bridge, he could feel the temperature getting warmer and warmer. Soon he was in a land where friendly volcanoes puffed out colorful smoke that smelled like fresh-baked cookies and warm apple pie. The red section wasn't scary at all. It was like being inside a giant oven where everything was cozy and warm. The volcanoes weren't dangerous. They were like big stone chimneys that made the most beautiful fireworks displays.
Look at that!
Red and orange flowers grew everywhere, their petals warm to the touch and glowing like tiny campfires. Even the rocks were friendly, rolling around and bumping into each other playfully like puppies made of smooth, warm stone. Zui found caves filled with crystals that hummed gentle songs, and hot springs where the water was the perfect temperature for soaking tired feet. Steam from the springs rose up and formed pictures in the air: castles, dragons, spaceships, and other amazing shapes that changed and danced before dissolving back into invisible air. Following the map's guidance, Zui climbed to the highest volcano, which turned out to be hollow inside like a giant bowl.
Impressive!
At the bottom was a spiral slide made of smooth obsidian that sparkled like black diamonds. He slid down, laughing as colorful sparks flew up around him like celebration confetti. The slide delivered him right to the golden section in the center of the island. Here, everything was made of different shades of gold, from pale butter yellow to deep sunset orange. Golden grass waved in the breeze, golden trees grew golden fruits that tasted like honey and sunshine, and golden butterflies danced in the warm golden light. In the very center of this golden paradise stood a magnificent golden tree with a hollow trunk. Inside the trunk was a spiral staircase that seemed to go on forever, both up and down at the same time. Zui climbed the stairs, and with each step, he could see more of the amazing island spread out below him like a living painting. At the top of the golden tree, Zui found something incredible, a bird's nest made of woven sunbeams, and sitting in the nest was another glowing map.
See you tomorrow!
You know that one drawer in the kitchen? The one that's full of junk? Everyone has one. It's got rubber bands, old batteries, a single crayon, and things you don't even have a name for. Well, one rainy Tuesday, Zui was rummaging through that very drawer, looking for a marble he'd lost. Way in the back, under a mess of tangled string, his fingers bumped into something small and round and made of metal. He pulled it out. It was a pocket watch. It was old and heavy, made of a silvery metal that had gone dull, and it was covered in tiny, swirling patterns. It didn't have a glass cover, so Zui could touch the hands directly. They were pointing to different numbers, just like a normal watch, but they weren't moving. Zui held it up to his ear. Nothing. No tick-tock. He found a little bumpy wheel on the top and started to wind it. He twisted and twisted, and with each turn, the watch got a little warmer in his hand. He gave it one final, big twist, and he heard a soft zing. And then, something strange happened. The sound of the rain drumming against the window just stopped. A fly that had been buzzing around the kitchen light went completely silent and still, just hanging in the air like a tiny black jewel. Zui looked down.
Whoa!
A drop of water was falling from the kitchen sink tap. Except it wasn't falling anymore. It was just there. A perfect, see-through teardrop, suspended in space. His heart did a little flip-flop. He waved his hand. It moved. He wiggled his toes in his socks. They wiggled. But everything else, everything in the whole world, had stopped. He tiptoed to the window and peeked outside. The world was like a photograph.
Beautiful!
The raindrops that had been falling were now a million tiny glass beads, hanging all over the sky. Mrs. Higgins from next door was frozen in the middle of reaching for her newspaper, one slipper halfway off her foot.
That is unbelievable!
A cat was stretched out mid-yawn, its mouth wide open, showing all its tiny pink and white parts, but no sound was coming out.
Huh, that is so cute!
A little laugh escaped Zui's lips. This was amazing. He slipped on his rain boots, grabbed the pocket watch, and opened the front door. The air felt thick and quiet. He could walk right between the hanging raindrops. He held his hand out and let one rest in his palm. It didn't even feel wet. It felt solid, like a tiny, smooth stone. He walked down the street, the only moving thing in a world that was holding its breath. The mailman was frozen, about to put a letter in a slot, a cheerful, stuck smile on his face. Zui could see the bright colors of the stamps on the letters in his bag. He saw a group of kids who had been splashing in a puddle. The splash was a beautiful, frozen sculpture of water, every droplet captured perfectly. It was more amazing than any fountain he had ever seen. He spent what felt like hours exploring his silent town. He saw a squirrel, frozen on a telephone wire, its fluffy tail held in a perfect curl. He could count the whiskers on its nose. He saw a baker through a shop window, holding a piping bag full of white frosting over a cake. A perfect star of frosting was hanging in the air between the bag and the cake. It was a secret world, and he was the only one with a ticket.
Look at that!
But as the real sun stayed stuck in the same spot in the sky, a new feeling started to bubble up inside him. It was fun being the only one who could move, but it was also lonely. The frozen smiles on people's faces weren't the same as real smiles. He missed the sound of the mailman's whistling. He missed the happy shouts from the kids playing in the puddle. The world was peaceful, but it wasn't alive. It was like a beautiful book with all the words, but no one to read them. It was time to turn the page. He ran back home, his footsteps echoing in the strange silence. He pulled the warm pocket watch from his pocket. It had to be the watch. Winding it up had stopped everything. So, what would happen if he unwound it? He found the little bumpy wheel again. This time, he started twisting it the other way. It was harder to turn backward. He had to use both of his thumbs.
I can hear a grumpy sound coming from the pocket watch. I think the watch is waking up from a long nap.
The sound of the rain hitting the window started up again, all at once. The drop of water from the tap finally fell into the sink with a little plink. From outside, he heard Mrs. Higgins say, "Oh, my slipper." The world was breathing again. The picture was moving. Zui let out a big breath he didn't even know he was holding. He looked at the old, silvery watch in his hand. It was just a quiet, still piece of metal again. He ran back to the junk drawer and tucked the watch deep into the corner, burying it under the tangled string and old rubber bands. That was a good place for it. A secret place for a secret adventure. He had learned something special today. A silent, still world is interesting to visit, but a noisy, moving, messy world is a much better place to live.
See you tomorrow!
Saturday mornings are for pancakes and cartoons, but this Saturday morning was different. Zui found something weird in his cereal box. Not a toy prize, something much better. It was a tiny silver marble, no bigger than a grape, and it felt warm in his palm. When he rolled it around, it made a soft whooshing sound, like wind through leaves. He was sitting at the kitchen table, turning the marble over in his hands, when it started to glow. Not bright like a light bulb, but soft like moonlight. The marble grew warmer, and then something amazing happened.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to watch my videos daily.
The ceiling disappeared, replaced by millions of twinkling stars. His chair transformed into a comfy pilot seat, and the kitchen table became a control panel covered in colorful, blinking buttons. The silver marble had become the steering wheel of a real spaceship. And somehow, Zui knew exactly what to do. He gripped the warm marble wheel and gave it a gentle push forward. The ship responded with a happy hum and lifted off, right through what used to be the kitchen ceiling. Up, up, up they went, leaving his house behind. The neighborhood looked like a toy train set from above.
Wow!
The ship climbed higher until Earth looked like a beautiful blue and white ball, spinning slowly in the darkness. His first stop was a surprise. The ship seemed to know where it wanted to go, and it wasn't the moon. Instead, it headed toward a group of floating rocks, asteroids, spinning and tumbling in space like giant, rough marbles. The ship weaved between them carefully. Some were as big as houses, others small enough to kick like soccer balls. One asteroid was covered in what looked like purple crystals that sparkled like jewels.
Beautiful!
Another one was perfectly smooth and black, like a giant bowling ball. The ship landed gently on a medium-sized asteroid that was flat on top, like a space parking lot. Zui stepped outside, and wow, he could jump so high.
That is unbelievable!
With barely any effort, he bounced from rock to rock, floating through space between them.
Huh, that is so cute!
It was like being on the world's best trampoline. The view was incredible. Stars everywhere, like someone had thrown glitter across black paper. Back in his ship, the next stop was Mars. The red planet looked like a rusty playground. The ship touched down on a wide, dusty plain. The ground was the color of brick, and in the distance, Zui could see enormous mountains that made Earth's mountains look tiny. He found what looked like dried-up riverbeds, winding across the land like old scars. He picked up a handful of the red dirt. It was fine and powdery, like cocoa powder. When he threw it up in the air, it fell down much slower than it would on Earth. The ship's next choice surprised him again. They flew toward a place that looked like a giant soap bubble floating in space. As they got closer, Zui realized it wasn't solid at all. It was a nebula, a huge cloud of colorful gas and dust. The ship dove right into it, and suddenly they were surrounded by the most amazing colors. Pink, purple, green, and gold swirled all around them like they were flying through a rainbow made of cotton candy.
Look at that!
It smelled sweet, somehow, and the air felt tingly on his skin. After the colorful cloud, something fast and bright zoomed past the ship. A comet. Its long, glowing tail stretched behind it like a flowing scarf. The ship followed it, and Zui felt like he was surfing through space. The comet's tail was made of ice and dust, and when some of it brushed against the ship, it felt cool and fizzy.
Guys, I see something over there. Is that a soccer ball? Oh, wait, that is a planet! Unbelievable!
A planet with rings, but not just any rings. These were made of pure ice, spinning in perfect circles around a pale yellow world. The ship flew right through the rings, and ice crystals tinkled against the windows like gentle rain. It was like flying through a tunnel made of diamonds. The ship then took him somewhere really special, a space station. It looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly in the darkness. The ship docked at the center, and Zui walked inside. The station was full of friendly robots who beeped hello and showed him around.
Wow!
There were gardens growing under purple lights, and a big window where you could watch planets drift by while you ate space ice cream. The robots gave him a present, a small telescope that would always help him see the wonders of space, even from Earth. They waved goodbye with their metal hands as his ship undocked and headed home. The journey back felt quick, like time had sped up. Soon, Earth grew bigger and bigger in front of them. The ship slipped through the atmosphere like diving into a blue pool. Clouds rushed past the windows, and then there was his town, his street, his house. The ship settled gently back in the kitchen. The control panel became the kitchen table again. The pilot's seat turned back into his breakfast chair. The silver marble was just a marble again, sitting next to his bowl of cereal, which was still somehow warm and not soggy at all. But the little telescope was real, sitting right there on the table. And in his pocket, he found a small piece of that red Mars dust, proof that his adventure had been real.
See you tomorrow!
The old brick wall behind Zui's house had been there forever. It was tall and covered with green moss, and nobody ever paid much attention to it. But today, something was different. As Zui walked by with his backpack full of books from school, he heard a strange sound coming from the top of the wall. It sounded like someone humming a happy tune, mixed with the gentle tapping of fingers on stone. He looked up, shading his eyes from the afternoon sun, and couldn't believe what he saw.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to watch my videos daily.
sitting on top of the wall was the biggest, most colorful egg he had ever seen. But this wasn't just any egg, this egg was alive. It had rosy cheeks and a wide, friendly smile. Little stick-thin legs that dangled over the side of the wall. The egg noticed Zui looking up and waved with a cheerful voice that sounded like jingle bells. It was Humpty Dumpty, just like from the old nursery rhyme, but he looked nothing like Zui had imagined.
Wow!
Instead of being sad or broken, this Humpty Dumpty was the happiest, most energetic egg person you could ever meet. Humpty called down to Zui in a voice that was warm like hot cocoa. He explained that he had been sitting on walls for hundreds of years, watching the world go by and learning about all the interesting people who walked past. He said Zui looked like someone with a good heart and asked if he wanted to come up and chat for a while. The wall was pretty high, but Humpty had a solution. He pulled out a long ribbon that shimmered like rainbow silk and tossed one end down to Zui. When Zui grabbed it, he felt himself being gently lifted up, as light as a feather, until he was sitting right next to the friendly egg on top of the wall. The view from up there was amazing.
That is unbelievable!
Zui could see over all the houses in his neighborhood, across the parks and playgrounds, and all the way to the mountains in the distance. But what was even more amazing was Humpty Dumpty himself.
Beautiful!
Up close, Zui could see that his shell wasn't plain white like a regular egg. It was covered in tiny, swirling patterns of gold and silver that seemed to move and dance in the sunlight.
Oh, that is so cute!
Humpty told Zui that he wasn't just any ordinary egg. He was a magical egg, filled with all the stories and dreams of every child who had ever heard his nursery rhyme. Every time someone said the words, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, he got a little bit stronger and a little bit happier. That's why he never really fell and broke. He was held together by all the love and imagination of children everywhere. As they sat together on the wall, Humpty shared some of his favorite stories. He told Zui about the time he helped a lost baby bird find its way back to its nest by singing a special egg song that mother birds could understand from miles away. He talked about the day he guided a family of ants safely across a busy sidewalk by creating shade with his round shadow. He even told about helping an old man find his lost wedding ring by rolling it out from under a bush where it had been hiding. But Humpty's most amazing talent was his ability to see the good things that were going to happen to people. He looked at Zui and smiled an even bigger smile. He told Zui that he could see wonderful adventures in his future, trips to magical places, new friends who would become like family, and amazing discoveries that would make him feel proud and happy. As they talked, something wonderful started to happen. Other nursery rhyme friends began to appear.
Look at that!
A tiny spider lowered herself down on a silver thread. It was the spider who had frightened Miss Muffet, but she turned out to be the sweetest, most polite spider you could imagine. She had been looking for Miss Muffet ever since, wanting to apologize for scaring her and maybe become friends. Then came a small white sheep, fluffy as a cloud, followed by a girl with a shepherd's crook. It was little Bo Peep, and she had finally found her sheep. She was so happy that she started dancing right there on the wall, and the sheep did a little bouncing dance too. They had been playing the world's longest game of hide and seek, and both of them thought it was the most fun ever. Soon, 3 mice came scurrying along the wall, not blind mice, but 3 very clever mice who wore tiny spectacles and carried small books under their arms. They were the smartest mice in the world, and they had been traveling from library to library, reading every book they could find and sharing stories with anyone who would listen.
Wow!
As the sun began to set, painting the sky in colors of orange sherbet and strawberry ice cream, all the nursery rhyme friends gathered on the wall for the most magical dinner party Zui had ever seen. The spider spun a tablecloth out of the finest silk thread. Bo Peep's sheep provided the softest cushions made of their fluffy wool. The 3 wise mice shared riddles and jokes that made everyone laugh until their sides hurt. There were tiny sandwiches cut in the shape of stars, soup that tasted like liquid sunshine, and cookies that changed flavors with every bite. For dessert, there was ice cream that never melted and cake that was as light as dreams. As the first stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Humpty Dumpty gave Zui a very special gift. It was a small, smooth stone that looked ordinary but felt warm in his hand. Humpty explained that this was a wishing stone, but not the kind that grants big, impossible wishes. Instead, it would help Zui notice all the small, wonderful things that happened every day.
See you tomorrow!
A strange, reedy tune, like a flute made of wind, drifted through the closed window. Zui, who was in the middle of building a towering block castle, stopped and tilted his head. The sound was soft, almost shy, but it pulled at him with a quiet insistence. It wasn't a sound from the street or the neighbor's yard. It felt older, wilder, and it seemed to be coming from the small, dusty corner beneath his bed, where forgotten toys and old drawings lived. With a newfound curiosity, Zui got on his hands and knees and peered into the darkness.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to watch my videos daily.
There, nestled behind a lost toy car, a new portal shimmered into being, a perfect circle of misty green light that pulsed with the gentle rhythm of the flute-like music. The light was cool and smelled faintly of wet earth and growing things. Zui, who had learned that magic was not something to be feared, didn't hesitate. He crawled through the opening, the world around him blurring into a swirl of emerald and jade.
Wow!
When he emerged, he was standing in a place completely different from the whispering grove he knew. This was a bamboo forest, where towering green stalks stretched toward a sky of muted pearl and the air was thick with the scent of fresh leaves. The gentle music was all around him now, and he noticed that it was coming from the bamboo stalks themselves, swaying in a soft, unseen breeze. As Zui walked deeper into the forest, he noticed a little rustle behind a thicket of bamboo. He stopped, holding his breath, and watched. He didn't want to frighten whatever was there. Slowly, a small, round head with fuzzy black ears peeked out. It was a panda. A little panda, with big, curious eyes that looked at him shyly.
That is unbelievable!
Zui knew that pandas were gentle creatures, but also that they were quiet and preferred to be left alone. Instead of rushing forward, he sat down on the ground, making himself small and non-threatening. He simply waited, watching the panda, and let the quiet of the forest settle over them. The little panda, seeing that Zui was not going to chase it, it emerged fully from the bamboo, its black and white fur as soft as a cloud.
Oh, that is so cute!
It sat down and began to nibble on a bamboo stalk, chewing slowly and deliberately.
Beautiful!
Its movements were so careful and peaceful, as if it had all the time in the world. Zui knew that he couldn't speak, not in this quiet place. So, he decided to try something else. He hummed a soft, wordless tune, one that his mother often sang to him as she tucked him in at night. It was a simple, gentle melody that sounded like a lullaby. The panda stopped chewing for a moment, its head tilted, listening intently. Zui continued to hum, and as he did, he noticed the panda's every movement with a new kind of wonder. He saw how its strong, little paws delicately held the bamboo, how its teeth expertly stripped the stalk of its tough outer layers, and how its eyes would close in pure satisfaction as it chewed on the sweet, inner part.
Look at that!
Zui felt a warmth spread through his chest, a feeling of understanding that went beyond words. He wasn't just watching a creature, he was seeing a friend and a fellow explorer. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, smooth, polished stone he often carried.
Impressive!
He laid it on the mossy ground between them, a small offering of peace and friendship. The panda looked at the stone, then at Zui with its big, kind eyes, then back at the stone. It nudged the stone with its nose, then, with a shy flick of its ear, picked up a fresh bamboo shoot and nudged it towards Zui in return. It was a clear invitation to share. Zui had never eaten bamboo before. With a little trepidation, he took the bamboo shoot and took a small bite. The crunch was surprisingly loud in the quiet forest. It wasn't at all what he expected.
Wow!
It was crunchy, with a subtle, sweet taste, like a less sugary stalk of celery. He grinned at the panda, who seemed to understand perfectly and gave a small, happy chuffing sound. They ate their bamboo side by side, the only sounds being the gentle rustle of leaves and the satisfying crunch of their shared meal. In that moment, surrounded by the beautiful, serene forest, Zui knew that this was a friendship born of quiet moments and simple acts of kindness. As the sun began to slant through the bamboo stalks, Zui knew his time in the forest was coming to an end. He looked at his new friend and made a silent promise to return. The panda, as if sensing his thoughts, nudged him one last time and then disappeared back into the rustling stalks. Zui stood up, the green portal still waiting for him. He took one last look at the beautiful, serene forest, and then stepped back through the misty light. He landed softly on his bedroom floor. The magical light behind his bed winked out. The scent of bamboo faded from the air, but the feeling of quiet, patient friendship remained. Zui looked at his block castle, which now seemed less like a conquest and more like a quiet home. He knew now that some of the greatest adventures aren't about big, noisy rocket ships or loud treasure hunts.
See you tomorrow!
Zui woke up and rubbed his eyes. The first thing he saw was the round clock on his wall. It was shaped like a perfect circle with numbers all around it. The hands pointed to 7 o'clock. Time to get up. He looked around his room and noticed something funny. Shapes were everywhere. His bed was a rectangle, long and wide with 4 corners. His pillow was a square, all 4 sides were the same size. Even his window was a rectangle, letting in bright morning light. Zui walked to his dresser and opened a square drawer.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to watch my videos daily.
Inside, his socks were rolled up into little balls, perfect circles. His books were stacked like rectangles, one on top of another. His lamp had a round base and a cone-shaped shade that looked like a triangle sitting on top. In the bathroom, Zui brushed his teeth. His toothbrush was long and skinny like a rectangle.
Wow!
The toothpaste came from a tube that was shaped like a cylinder, round like a circle but tall like a can. The mirror was a big rectangle that showed his face. Even his smile was curved like part of a circle. Downstairs in the kitchen, Mom was making breakfast. The table was round like a big circle. The plates were circles too, white and smooth. The toast popped out from the toaster. Each slice was a perfect square of golden bread.
That looks perfect!
Mom cut an orange, and each slice was shaped like a half circle with a curved edge. Zui poured milk from a rectangular carton into a round glass. The cereal bowl was round like a circle, and the spoon was long like a skinny oval. Even the kitchen tiles on the floor were squares, making a pattern of black and white shapes. After breakfast, Zui got ready for school. His backpack was shaped like a rectangle with straps. His lunchbox was also a rectangle, but smaller. Inside, Mom had packed a sandwich cut into triangles. Each piece had 3 sides and 3 corners. Walking to school, Zui noticed shapes everywhere on the street. Car wheels were perfect circles, rolling round and round.
Oh, that is so cute!
Windows in houses were mostly rectangles, some tall and some wide.
Beautiful!
Stop signs were special shapes called octagons. They had 8 sides and 8 corners, painted bright red. The school building had a rectangular door and square windows all in rows. The playground was full of shapes too. The swing seats were rectangles hanging from chains. The merry-go-round was a big circle that spun around and around. In his classroom, Zui sat at a rectangular desk. His pencils were long cylinders with points. Paper was rectangular, longer than it was wide. The whiteboard at the front was a big rectangle where the teacher wrote with circular markers. During math class, she held up a red circle and asked everyone to find circles in the room. Zui raised his hand and pointed to the clock, the trash can, and the globe on the teacher's desk. Next came squares. The teacher showed a yellow square card.
Look at that!
Zui found square tiles on the floor, square books on the shelf, Squares were everywhere once you started looking. Triangles were trickier to find. The teacher showed them a blue triangle card. Zui looked around and spotted triangles in the roof of the toy house in the reading corner.
Impressive!
Even some of the pattern blocks in the math center were triangular. Rectangles were the easiest to find. The teacher held up a green rectangle card. Doors were rectangles. The windows, the whiteboard, even the classroom itself was shaped like a big rectangle. During art class, they made shape collages. Zui cut out circles from red paper, squares from blue paper, and triangles from yellow paper. He arranged them on white paper to make a picture. His circles became wheels on a car. His squares became windows on a house. His triangles became the roof and trees.
Wow!
Walking home from school, Zui played the shape spotting game in his head. Street lights had circular tops. Mailboxes were rectangular. Some roofs were triangular, pointing up to the sky. Even the manhole covers in the street were perfect circles with patterns inside. At home, Zui helped Mom cook dinner. They used a round pan to make pancakes. The pancakes came out as perfect circles, golden and fluffy. For dinner, they sat at their round table again. The pizza was cut into triangular slices. Each piece was a triangle with a curved edge where the crust made part of a circle. Zui's favorite part was seeing how all the triangle pieces fit together to make the whole circular pizza. Before bed, Zui looked out his rectangular bedroom window at the night sky. The moon was almost a perfect circle, bright and white against the dark sky. Stars looked like tiny dots, but Dad said they were really like circles too, just very far away. As he got ready for bed, Zui realized something amazing. Shapes were not just things you learned about in school, they were everywhere. Every single day was full of circles, squares, rectangles, and triangles.
See you tomorrow!
Every morning, Zui woke up excited about something special. It was not toys or games that made him happy. It was the yummy fruits waiting for him in the kitchen. His mom always had a big bowl of colorful fruits on the table, and each day was like opening a box of sweet treasures. The first fruit Zui loved was the bright red apple. It was round like a ball and made a satisfying crunch when he bit into it. Mom would wash the apple until it shined, and sometimes she would cut it into thin slices that looked like half moons. The apple tasted sweet and a little bit sour at the same time, and it made his mouth feel fresh and clean.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to watch my videos daily.
Next to the apples were golden yellow bananas. They came in their own special wrapper that Zui could peel by himself. He loved how the banana was soft and sweet, almost like nature's own candy.
Wow!
Sometimes Mom would slice the bananas and put them on his cereal. In the summer, Zui's favorite fruit was bright red strawberries.
Oh, that is so cute!
They were small and shaped like little hearts with green tops that looked like tiny hats. Each strawberry was covered in small seeds that looked like polka dots.
That looks perfect!
When Zui bit into a strawberry, sweet juice would run down his chin. The orange was Zui's puzzle fruit. It was round like a ball, but it had a special bumpy skin that he could peel with his fingers. Inside, the orange was made of little triangular pieces that came apart like nature's own slices. When he squeezed a piece, sweet orange juice would squirt out. The orange made his fingers smell citrusy and fresh for hours. Grapes were Zui's favorite finger food. They grew in bunches like green or purple marbles hanging together. Each grape was perfectly round and smooth, and when he bit one, it would pop in his mouth with a burst of sweet juice.
Beautiful!
The funny-looking kiwi was Zui's adventure fruit. On the outside, it was brown and fuzzy like a tiny coconut. But when Mom cut it open, inside was bright green with a white center and tiny black seeds in a circle. The kiwi tasted sweet and a little bit sour, and it was so colorful that it looked like a tiny green sun with black dots around it. Watermelon was Zui's summer favorite. It was huge and green on the outside with dark green stripes. When Dad cut it open, inside was bright red or sometimes yellow, full of black seeds that looked like tiny teardrops. Watermelon was so juicy that it was like eating flavored water that tasted like sunshine and summer days. The exotic mango was Zui's tropical treasure. It was oval-shaped and could be yellow, red, or green on the outside. When Mom cut it up, the inside was bright orange like the sunset.
Look at that!
Mango was incredibly sweet and soft, almost like eating a creamy dessert. The flavor was so rich and special that it made Zui feel like he was eating sunshine from a faraway place. Blueberries were Zui's tiny gems. Each one was perfectly round and dark blue, no bigger than his pinky nail. They had a little crown on top and were sweet with just a tiny bit of tartness. Zui loved to eat them one by one, or sometimes he would put a whole handful in his mouth and taste the explosion of berry flavor. Pineapple was Zui's spiky surprise. On the outside, it looked tough and mean with its spiky skin and green leafy top. But inside, it was golden yellow and incredibly sweet. Mom would cut it into rings or chunks, and each bite tasted like tropical paradise.
Impressive!
The pineapple was so juicy that it made Zui's mouth tingle in the best way. Peaches were Zui's fuzzy friends. They were round like apples but covered in soft fuzz that tickled his hands. The skin could be yellow, pink, or red, and inside they were orange or white. Peaches were incredibly juicy, and when Zui bit into one, the sweet juice would run down his hands. They smelled like summer and tasted like happiness. Cherries were Zui's special treats. They were small and perfectly round, bright red or sometimes yellow, and each one had a little green stem like a handle.
Wow!
Inside each cherry was a hard pit that Mom would take out for him. Cherries were sweet and a little bit sour, and they turned his tongue red when he ate too many. Every day, Zui would choose different fruits from the colorful bowl. Sometimes he would make fruit salad by mixing pieces of apple, banana, and strawberry together. Other days, he would have a rainbow snack with red strawberries, orange pieces, yellow banana, green grapes, and purple blueberries all on one plate. Mom taught Zui that fruits were not just yummy, They were also very good for his body. They helped him grow strong and tall, kept his teeth healthy, and gave him energy to play and learn. The vitamins in fruits were like tiny helpers inside his body, making sure everything worked perfectly. At snack time, instead of cookies or candy, Zui would choose his favorite fruits. Sometimes he would have apple slices with a tiny bit of peanut butter, or banana pieces with yogurt. Other times, he would have a handful of berries or some juicy orange pieces. Even when they went on picnics or trips, Mom would pack fruits in containers so Zui could have his healthy treats anywhere. The fruits gave him energy to run and play, and they always tasted better when he was hungry from being active. As night came and it was time for bed, Zui would think about all the delicious fruits he had eaten that day.
See you tomorrow!